Networking tells you and helps you understand who you could work with, and it helps build that trust.
And I think the only way to do is get out of your comfort zone. Go out, make connections.
The person who has will be given more, and the person who doesn't have, even what he has will be taken away from him.
So the third segment of our podcast is Mastering the Art of Networking, which we spoke a bit about in the earlier segment, but we'll get into it with a bit more depth. So the first question I have is for Ashan. What are some effective strategies for building a personal network, especially for those who may be introverted? Because a lot of people, they say, I'm introverted, I don't like going out and speaking to people, especially in this day of they are near social media, they don't like going out and having physical interaction. So what would you say?
You're asking the question from the right person.
No. So, see, firstly, I am not a psychologist, but then I don't agree with the fact that introverts don't mingle and they do networking all the time. Sometimes extrovertness can be a challenge because you don't know whom you're meeting. You may be meeting an extrovert or an introvert. But I always believe in one thing: your informal meetings always proceeds from your formal meetings and formal relationships proceeds from an informal meeting. And that is your opportunity to showcase yourself and give that impression. So take your informal meetings, whether you're out there having a coffee or your first meeting. It's always going to be a very informal meeting. Even the first, when you enter into or when you just walk into a room where you think you're going to conduct a very formal meeting, it always starts with an informal discussion. So how you greet that person. So be serious, take seriously about your informal meetings. And also I believe in one thing. I don't want to spiritualize the talk. The enemy is here also. There is a phenomenon called the Matthew effect. Of course, it comes from the Bible. That's why it's called the Matthew effect. The Matthew effect says, it's a very, very strange thing that you find in a religious book. It says, the person who has will be given more, and the person who doesn't have, even what he has will be taken away from him. It's a very paradoxical thing stemming from a biblical verse. But there's so much of studies being done and writing on this regard. It's called the Matthew effect because it says the more popular you are and the more wealthier you are, you tend to get more popular and wealthier. Right? So read it up, it's called the Matthew effect. So if you are popular, you are guaranteed to be more popular. Now, I'll give you an example. This is called sociology of science. The more prominent scientists always get prominence. And if you're an unknown scientist, there's very little room for you to be prominent. Now, for an example, there are studies, there are laboratory tests and reports being put out. It's always the main professor's name. Have you seen this young scientist who has worked hard, maybe done 100 hours of working there? He's not going to get his prominence. But through networking and this is the Matthew effect. So networking is very, very, very important. One of the main strategies is you take your informal meetings very seriously, but keep in touch. Always don't let a contact or network go out of your reach. Make sure they are within your reach all the time. Always check where they are, what they are doing, be updated. You must know what they are up to. And also if your networking is good, whenever they have a requirement, your network has a requirement, your name should be the first coming into their minds. So always networking, it doesn't matter whether you are in social media or not. Even the little networking you have, if you work hard and maintain that, you'll be pretty well. You'll do pretty well.
You all have anything to add to that?
No, I think it's definitely what you said. Like you mentioned the Matthew's paradox as well, where the person who has become, and I think the only way to break out of that, I was just thinking in my head, how does one get out of that? And I think the only way to do is get out of your comfort zone, go out, make connections, and connect with people, because you never know what those people might, you never know when you might need them, and you never know when they might need you. And it's business, I really feel, is just meetings happening over coffee that it turns into these businesses and that will continue down in life. Because all it takes is one idea over a cup of coffee or a cup of tea that generates and that keeps cultivating to so on and so forth. All it takes is a couple of ideas. So it really depends on who you know and how you keep that association going, I believe.
I'll just give one example. There was a businessman and he regularly used to visit this bank to obtain financial facilities. So he had to be constantly in contact with the credit officer. So the credit officer one day was telling, why are you taking this loan? Why you structure it this way? So he was, in a way, like a bank officer was advising this businessman. So the businessman said, in time they grew in a relationship, in a friendly relationship, like a banker-customer relationship. And one day he said, look, I have this amount of assets. You seem to be a credit officer, but then you have much better knowledge than just a credit officer. Come join with me as a partner. I'll give you 50%. For some reason he said yes, because he trusted him, because they've had this relationship. Now he's a multimillionaire, both of them. This credit officer would have ended up as a general manager in the bank after 20 years. But now trust me, he's a multimillionaire. And they are doing extremely well in their business. That was networking as far as the credit officer was concerned and as far as the businessman is concerned. Just that little relationship.
And also when you're in school, right? I must add, the people who you do your A-levels or your O-levels with, 5-10 years later, they've all become career men and women of this world. And you're surprised. These are the same people that you grew up with, that you from your childhood days, but now they have become so much more. And some people, they kind of fall out of those relationships. And it's always important to connect, because not only do you know them, they really know who you are. They know who your core competencies are. They know who you are as a person. You know whether they are trustworthy and so more. And I believe that when you have history with them, like brushing up on what you mentioned as well, you really got to keep, if a connection comes your way, you also got to make sure that you keep it as well, because that is, I believe, what builds strong. And something else, like online like connections, networking per se, I think it works the same way as physical ones. It really does. But it's come to us, it's a much more broader. Before, you've got to go to an event, you've got to go to some place to meet a group of people or go to a seminar. Now it's not. If you go to Facebook, so if I'm talking about my industry, I'm in the automotive industry, there's the Land Rover Club, there's the Land Cruiser Club, there's the Nissan Patrol Club, there's the Isuzu Trooper Club. And who's a part of all these clubs? Me. Because I've got to be informed. I've got to know what is going on in each of these. And if anything new comes up, I'm aware of it. If somebody puts up a statement saying, oh, where can I buy this product? I can put in a comment there, oh, we have this product. So it's always good to be knowledgeable, because at the end of the day, knowledge is power in today's day and age. And you don't even have to know the person one-on-one. Just your presence there means that your brand is alive, your essence is there, and you're saying, listen, no, we cater to such products. And you putting that comment in is not only directed at one person, it's directed at a whole group of people who may be searching for the same product. And it's the same for WhatsApp as well. I've suddenly become a group of these WhatsApp groups as well, off-roading club. Like, yes, it can be a little bit cumbersome, but it's important to kind of follow up.
Because there are opportunities.
There are opportunities. There are so much of opportunities, and you really hear what people think, but here's where it goes wrong. Once again, coming back into it, I feel like people behind a computer become suddenly much more courageous than in real life. And they start shooting everything that they think and feel. And that's when you overshot your thing. And I really feel even when you're networking online as well, especially when you're online, you've really got to know what to say. And you've got to think of it as you're representing yourself, your company. If you're talking with international people, it's your country, whatever said and done. So you're a bigger part of the process and a bigger part of the situation. So you really got to make sure that you represent yourself and your situation correctly. So it could, when I'm telling you do networking, it's not just, hi, do you want to hang out? Yes, of course, like you mentioned, everything starts out informal. But make sure you put the right basis in as well, and you're portrayed right, rather than it can't all be fun and games. There has to be perspective in there as well. I think that's very important.
True.
And then like you said, you have experience in a range of industries. You worked in the education industry, agriculture.
I just started.
Yeah.
Not a pro at it.
But you're there, you're there, and you're willing to try. So how important is networking for you? And could you share, you need trustworthy people working with you, and especially when you have a lot of things going on, you need people to sort of keep tabs on things when you can't allocate enough time to a certain thing. How important is it to have that sort of team with you or that person when you're working on a project?
Okay, so to answer the question, I started with my introduction, and that's what you relied on. And then I moved into the first segment where you said, how do you set career goals? And I'm going to work down and then let you know how I connected. When I was 20, I had this vision for myself at a certain age. I wanted to be a social entrepreneur. It's a little bit different from being a philanthropist. Philanthropist has enough money to give out, whereas a social entrepreneur encourages the whole capacity building where they identify someone who has the capacity and encourages and supports that. And that led to the whole journey that I'm in right now, which, like I said, I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve, but I'm working towards it. And it's important to have those mini goals that's set. And I look back at social media, like I said, I look back what I posted 10 years ago, and I'm like, is this really me? I wouldn't want anyone to see this. But over a period of time, if you look through my Facebook profile, it's something to do with some sort of a business or some sort of an activity. Very rarely do you see a picture of me or a picture of some friends or something the other over the period of time. So I saw social media as a place of communicating what I do. And I've had questions. One of the posts, ironically, was my SEMA graduation. And then right after that, a picture of me doing Kottu. And then I had this comment from a friend of mine, you just graduated as a SEMA guy, why are you doing Kottu? And I've had those challenges, and social media brings that challenge to you. But what helped me was, throughout the period of me posting about multiple things, I've had people individually messaging me saying, hey, what's this new venture that you're starting? What is it all about? I'd like to be part of it. I want to talk to you. You seem to be involved in a lot of things. And it goes back to my, even though I post multiple things, it goes back to my ultimate objective. My personal goal is to be a social entrepreneur at a certain age. And I've worked my way backwards thinking, if I am to be like that, I can't work on one segment and think education is what I'm going to give. I have to be aware of everything. Coming back into networking and the question that you asked, it's a lot of trust. Like Samita mentioned, you have friends that you schooled with. Ashan is 2 years elder to me. He's from my school, right? And then it's something that we Benedictines are proud of is we tend to move around with someone that's older to us or younger to us because we share ideas. So I've known him since school days, and we spent time. And one of the things that we built up is if there is a legal matter, my first point of contact would be him. So going by what Samita said, 10 years later, you want to be in touch with the people you're in touch with, and you want to build that trust. So people that I work with, obviously time is restricted. So you have to find the right person that you're willing to work with, and you're going to make mistakes. I've made mistakes. 2018 started this restaurant industry with 3 other friends, or 4 of us. I'm still in touch with all of them, but I'm not doing business with all of them, if that makes sense, because I've learned what needs to be done. So there is no formula for an immediate success story, it's experience. But networking tells you and helps you understand who you could work with and helps build that trust. And to answer the question, how do you find that right person, is by making the mistake of finding the wrong person. And then you eventually get the right person and you work with that person. But you have your mindset at your eventual goal, which is what you want to do, and you dream big. My dream was to be a social entrepreneur at 45. I'm only 35, so I have 10 years more, and I'm working backwards. There's so many other things that needs to be fulfilled for that to be achieved, and that's where you get at it. And networking helps, because if I think education is my industry and I network only with educators, I'm not going to know about other industries. And it's important that you talk to people. It's important that you're aware of everything. Actually, education is about knowing everything. So, it's connected at the end of the day. So that's what it is.
And one more question for Ashan. You've dealt with various levels of, you've dealt with the state, you've dealt with, and now you're a personal, you have your own consultancy. Is your approach the same when it comes to networking, or do you differ, change based on who you're approaching, the situation?
Absolutely. You have to. I mean, sometimes you're dealing with the most simplest person in that, or the person who's doing the most minute of activities in that organization. It could be just a good morning, or today is it gonna rain? Where are you from? Maybe something like that. But then if you're going to meet the head of that organization, you need to have a different perspective, different mindset altogether. When you're dealing with the state, you have to be very patient. You need a lot of patience. It's going to take time. They have their procedures, bureaucracy, their red tape. It differs. And most of the time, when you're dealing with the private sector, they want results yesterday. I mean, they're like, okay, I want this agreement. When do you want it? Yesterday. Oh, okay. So, you have to change your approach. You really, really have to change your approach. Because sometimes, if you make a mistake, you can come back out of it. But then that might harm your reputation. So you need to take it very seriously. Just adding on to what Denham said, and adding on to my answer to your question, see, the difficult thing about life is life doesn't give you a lesson how to overcome a mistake. Life gives you a mistake and then you learn a lesson. So even with networking, that's how it is. You make a mistake with, when you network, that's life. So yes, if you are very serious about your contacts, you need to change from person to person, entity to entity, organization to organization. Otherwise, you will not be making the best out of your networking efforts.
To add to that, to be successful, you can't network only with the big shot of whoever.
No.
Right? You got to network with the lowest, because everybody needs everyone at any level, sort of a thing. So we shouldn't fall into this trap of thinking networking is you always sit with the main decision maker. You got to be able to network, even if it's your own colleague, work colleague, because that's important. And then that whole ability to work with anyone will push you through. And to answer your question, how do you find the right person to work with, is that ability to understand all of us have weaknesses. All of us are not, we were not born perfect. So it's the ability to understand what is it that you can get from that person, not to use that person, but to work with that. So you have to be able to work with everyone. That's very important.
Just one example. If you go to a restaurant, you ask the waiter his name, and next time you call him, you call by his name and ask for the bill or the next dish, you see the difference. You go with the Uber driver, ask his name, ask where he's from, whether he's married, then you'll know whether he's a safe guy to travel with, at least. I mean, just adding on to what you're saying.
People like that personal touch. We like that personal
And
touch.
also, people remember how you make them feel. That's important. And regardless of where you go in life, people are going to remember how you made them feel. So always, not like you all mentioned, it's not only the big guys. While you're climbing the ladder, you've got to be courteous, kind to everyone around you, because the chances are you are going to need each and every one of them on your journey to success. And there's no other way about it.
That about wraps it up. Do you all have any final remarks that you all want to speak about based on the topics that we have been speaking about today? Anything to add? I'll start with Ashan.
So, the one last thing I want to add is like, you need to be prepared everywhere you go, whether you're networking, whether you're trying to achieve your life objectives. Preparation is important. But sometimes when you are faced with a challenge, it's best not to be prepared, at least to show that you are not prepared, because then you are surprised in the challenge. That has worked for me. So my final remark is that preparation is important, but when you are faced with a challenge, deceive the challenge a little.
Okay. Darren?
I think you asked me the question, why do I wear 2 wristwatches?
Finally.
So, I mean, it's sort of, for me, when you set career goals, and I said you have a ultimate, you aim high, you have a dream. When you have that set, you got to have milestones. My milestone and success of my milestone is what I'm wearing on my left hand. And every day in the morning, I love my wristwatches. And every wristwatch has a story. And on my right hand, I have my Fitbit, because, Fitbit helps me keep fit or calculate the number of steps I try to hit a target. Even with health, it's always important to have a target. So Fitbit helps with that. But the wristwatch that I wear every day when I wake up, I think to myself, okay, today what would I like to wear? Because like I said, one of the things growing up, I had this dream I wanted to wear a Rolex. And I wanted to work towards it. But I didn't want someone gifting that to me, because I didn't want it coming free. I wanted to work my way there. But this wristwatch that I'm wearing today was my first wristwatch, in a sense where at my first job, my first salary, I gifted something to my dad and my mom. And this was the wristwatch that I gifted my dad. And over a period of time, I was able to gift something better. And then he returned my first gift. And I thought, I wanted to wear this watch to remind me that this is where I started. And I started as anyone would start, at the ground level, and then that's when I moved forward. I haven't still bought the Rolex I want to buy, but I've gotten closer to that point. Like I said, there's still a long way to go. And it's good to dream big. It's not about financially achieving something, it's satisfaction with what you wear, what you drive. Now, if you ask Ashan, one of the things he always told me is you got to dress smart to make an impression.
100%.
And that's important as an individual, to dress smart, to be, to be that vibrant voice in the room. You feel pleasant about it. But going into why I wear 2 wristwatches, this reminds me, this is where I started, this is what I did. And I mean, that itself was an achievement of a milestone when I was able to buy something, maybe not for myself, but for my dad. But then he returned it back because I was able to buy something better. And I'm hoping he'll keep returning that so I don't need to buy it.
But I must say, pretty hefty first salary.
Yeah. This was in 2010.
Pretty hefty first salary.
And that was networking. That's why it was pretty hefty. But yeah, that's the reason. Reminds me of my mini milestones and achievements.
And I think what I would say is like, aim for success, but always be ready for failure.
Of course.
Because the 3 of us here, I can speak only for myself, but I'm sure you guys will pitch in as well. We've all stumbled numerous times. We're still figuring it out. We haven't figured it all out. We're still on our paths, we're still on our courses. And we wouldn't be where we are today if we weren't afraid to fall down as well. You had to take a couple of risks and be prepared to fall down and learn to get back up. Because only once you do that, you feel, okay, fine. I did that, I stumbled, here we go again.
Yeah.
Here we go again. So there's no easy way to success. There's no plan, there's no process. The best laid out plans will always never go accordingly. There'll always be
Something has to go wrong.
Something has
If it
to
doesn't go wrong, then
wrong.
something is wrong there.
Definitely. And I think most of the people, they're too scared to fail in today's day and life. Nobody wants to fail. And I think you have to be comfortable in failing. That's where the growth and learning is. And once you get comfortable with failing, only can you reach and aim for success. And I think that's a line I want to leave it at.
Thank you so much. That about wraps it up for our episode. We would be doing more podcasts of this nature, so please stay tuned. Thank you. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to like and subscribe to the GEP YouTube channel. And we also have a bunch of very interesting practical short courses which are related to the episodes from the podcast. So stay tuned.